Right, I want to try and get a shot of my front wheel, maybe. It's a bit close, isn't it? I've got a better idea. Let's get this out. And we'll just put it like that, I guess. Yeah, that'd be fine. Deal with it later. Morning, ladies and gents. You'll be watching this in the evening. It's also afternoon here. Completely wrong. After years of using GoPros, you'll know that I've now got this thing, the Insta360 One X2. Hi. Let's get going first, shall we? Oh, yes, please. As some of you will know, I was bought this camera by Emma, my girlfriend, for my 30th birthday. Since then, I've taken it around Yosemite, I've taken it around Ireland, and I've taken it around the ABR festival. A good couple of months of using it and essentially, well, kind of abusing it as well. I thought I'd bring you my opinion on what I use it for, how I found it, what it's like to edit with, and what I do and don't like about it. A little bit of gravel in the middle of the road there. Let me stop and I'll show you what it looks like if you don't already know. There should be enough space. Yeah! This is the Insta360 One X2 bug. It's got a dome-shaped lens on this side and a dome-shaped lens on this side and a screen. So these two lenses both film 100, I think it's 190 degrees, and then what the camera does is it stitches that line in the middle. So for example, if I'm facing the 1290 here, it films from there to about there, and then you'll probably see it goes a little bit blurry, and then it comes back round. It is really good, like really clever. There's only a couple of times where it's a little bit blurry. Say I mounted it coming off the side here, I've got a shot of the front wheel, and I've also got a shot of the rear wheel. I've got a shot of me riding, because I'll be up here somewhere. I've got a shot into the open countryside, I suppose, if you want an away from bike shot. So as a camera, doing it for motor vlogging or even for Instagram content or anything like that, it is fantastic. It's such a good camera to use. Now, being completely honest, if I just want a camera to film me riding like this one here, honestly, I'd just get a GoPro. Now the quality on this camera, this is a GoPro Hero 9 Black. I think the max resolution you can get out of this, or the Hero 10 for example, is 5K at 24 or 30 frames a second. That can go up to 60 frames a second, it can go up to 120 frames a second, but the quality of a general action cam like this is fantastic. Now the Insta360 films in 5.7K, but you cannot export in anything higher than 1080p 30 frames a second on the app. On the desktop software you can export in 4K, or it's not true 4K. Before we get into the app and the editing and all that sort of stuff and where I found the issues with that, there is one big issue with pretty much any 360 camera. Look at how far those lenses protrude. So if you put that down, you're essentially resting it on the lens. I'm not going to do it, but you get the point. So anywhere, if you knock it, if you put it down anywhere, the lenses are the first thing that gets hit, which is probably the biggest downfall with the form factor itself. This is the battery. This will easily outlast a GoPro. GoPros, you're really lucky if you get an hour's recording with the new ones, the 9 and the 10. This, I've had 70, 80 minutes out of without any problems. So this compartment above the battery is the one for charging. And then there's a USB-C charger. So you can get an external clip-in thing, which is for a microphone, goes into this slot and it gives you a charging port and an extra, like a 3.5mm jack. So you could use this as your main vlogging camera. Ironically, after just telling you how much better this is on battery, the GoPro just died. Lol. Bang that in there. Shout out to the Top Box Diviner Man, as per usual, and Mark from Leeds. Skip-a-dip-a-dip-a-dip-a-dip. That is bouncing around everywhere, but the footage should be relatively still. That's at least a foot out the front of my bike. Need to be careful I don't protrude the front of the thing out. You see the guy as I go past. Getting into like the files and the editing. If you've got a GoPro, you'll know that GoPros tend to record 10 minutes at a time, and then they'll stop momentarily and start again to sort of save the file sizes. I think there's like a legality in it as well. So if you're recording for an hour, you'll get 6 10-minute files. This one records half an hour at a time. So it does 30 minutes, stops, restarts, and like you don't have to press anything, it just does it automatically. Because of that, the file sizes are massive, so transferring them across or anything takes a lot longer than GoPros or anything like that. Probably the biggest negative for me, when I'm recording, I have to sync up my footage. So a lot of people clap to give you a peek in the audio so you can sync up where the audio lines up. Super. With a GoPro, that's fine because it records 10 minutes and it goes straight on to the next 10 minutes. You haven't got to worry about it, it's fine. With this, there's probably about a 20-second break between the first recording stopping and the second recording restarting. So unless you manually go, oh, it's been nearly half an hour, I'm going to stop and restart it, you have to go through and like find a reference point and sort of try and link it up, and it is such a pain in the arse. That also quite nicely brings me on to the next point of editing. Now this is fantastic if you're just doing it on Instagram and you just want short clips of you riding around a track or riding off road or whatever. If you're using this as an additional camera to a GoPro or whatever, it's an additional layer of editing. When I get home, I'm going to have to edit the footage on this, and when I say edit, I mean cut it down, I mean point it in whichever angle I want, zoom in, zoom out, all that kind of stuff. Then I need to export that footage, like the file, and then I put it into DaVinci Resolve and edit it with the rest of my footage from GoPro. So it's another layer of editing that you have to do, and it is really long. That's with any 360 cam, it's not just with this one. Neutralis. Kill switch engaged. Yeah. Oh, super adventure. If you live in Hertfordshire and that was you, your bike sounds really good. In the editing, you can obviously see me here. You can see whatever's going on over there. You can see up the road and down the road. That's probably quite dizzying for you lot to watch. So there's a few different editing options kind of thing. The first one that's fantastic is the ability to change the aspect ratio. So this is recording one file, then what I can do is I can change it from a standard shot as I'm in now, which is just a 16:9. I can change it to a 9:16, which is like an Instagram reel or TikTok or something like that. I can change it to a 1:1, which is like a standard Instagram post. And then I think it's a 1:25 or something like that, which is like a super wide angle one. All of that is done with the same file, and you can change it over and over again. So this footage now I can put on my YouTube channel, edit it, export it. Now with all of my editing points that are already along my timeline, which we'll get onto in a minute, I can then re-export that exact same clip as a 9:16. So if you're using this for multiple different social medias, it's amazing. It is so good. Now, I mentioned editing points. You've got a few different options in this. There's only really two that I use. One of them is deep track and one of them is the keyframes. With a keyframe, you're just saying where you want the camera to point at that time. So I stand over here and I put a keyframe of me here. The camera's going to point this way. Now if I walk over here, you're currently still looking over there. Whereas if I put the keyframe here again, and then I put a keyframe here, for example, what will happen is the camera will move from the first keyframe to the second one in whatever speed it takes to get there in that time frame. The other way that I found really good is deep track. Again, I'll try and screen record this in whichever way I can, but you put a box around something you want to track. I'll put a box around the entirety of me, and I'll just walk. Doesn't matter where I walk, I've found this really good so far. A lot of tracking software will lose its shit as soon as you, like, I'll put a box around this GoPro, and as soon as I do that, it loses the track. And it happens with my drone, and it happens with loads of other stuff. This seems to work pretty well. So I put a box around my head or whatever, and I can start walking around, and the camera just tracks me, and I'm just always in shot. So all of that is just really, really good. But as you can imagine, when you've got 3 30-minute clips to go through, as I was saying earlier, if you're then taking that, exporting it, putting it in another timeline to then edit with GoPro footage, it becomes quite a substantial process. Whee! So, thank you very much for joining me. Stick anything in the comments, any questions you've got, and I will see you in next week's video. Bye.